It's finally spring. Technically, it's been spring for a few weeks now, but you never would have guessed that looking around here because none of the trees in this area have their leaves. Up until recently, after a whole bunch of snow fell, they all have their leaves. Which kind of makes you wonder, do the trees know exactly when the season's going to change? It's been warm up here for most of the winter. It almost seemed like we were going to get an early spring, spitting in the face of our local groundhog, Balzac Billy, who predicted 6 more weeks of winter. Turns out Balzac Billy was correct, and we actually probably got more than 6 weeks of winter. So, thanks. Thanks, Balzac Billy. Now, the trees clearly listened to Balzac Billy, but the grass did not, because for weeks now, it thought it was going to be spring. Something the trees wanted no part of. Even though after it snowed, the grass became greener, so that might have been part of the grass's master plan, but I don't know what the grass is thinking. We're talking about trees here. Now, I'm sure you wondered at some point, how do the trees even know when it's time to leaf on? Well, the answer is pretty complicated and involves a lot of big words, so I'm going to try to keep this as simple as I can. Here, close your eyes. Imagine a bear. Specifically, a hibernating bear in a large cave with a large window and a solar-powered alarm clock just outside the reach of the sunlight coming in during the winter. Just like a bear, the mighty tree has built itself up to withstand the coldness of winter throughout the summer is now just chilling. And it doesn't need its leaves right now because it photosynthesized so hard over the past 5 months. Now, as soon as the days get long enough that the sun rays do reach that alarm clock from earlier, it is time to wake up and rain terror on the local salmon population. But in the case of the tree, just replace local salmon population with sunlight. Make sense? Great. Now we know what's going on, and it's all so clear, except it's not. The longest day here is 16 hours, 33 minutes, and 15 seconds. The week before we got hit with a snowstorm, the days were just under 15 hours long, which is not that big of a difference, and a far cry from the shortest day of the year, which is 7 hours, 54 minutes, and 18 seconds. That's almost double that already. What more do the trees need? Maybe temperature's involved. In order for it to snow, it has to be cold, right? And leaves hate the cold. You throw a couple of them in a freezer and they'll never never convert a single ray of sunlight into glucose again. Sure. Except out here, we get these things called Chinooks, and that fluctuates the temperature by a lot. The week before we got hit by a bunch of snow, the temperature was 16 degrees. It was over 10 degrees for several days before that. You'd think that would have woken the trees up, right? It's warm, the days are much longer, the solstice has just passed, so why no leaves? Turns out it's not the warmth that makes them wake up, it's the cold. They're not out there thinking, whoa, it's nice, let's bloom and brighten up the landscape. Instead, they're thinking, according to my calculations, it's been cold for 78 days, which means 2 more days and it's time to leaf on, baby. Which makes sense. I guess it can't just bloom every time it feels like spring in January, which happened a lot out here thanks to El Nino. Our winter this year was basically a long spring, which delightful for us, but probably not so great for the trees. The exact amount of cold required for a tree to bloom, it varies quite a bit from tree to tree. Some of the northern trees will bloom later on, southern trees will bloom pretty much all year. If you go to LA, those trees are always green. If you come up here to Canadaland, they're not green very much because it snows here. A lot.
Alberta transitioned from April to May with a significant shot of spring snow.
And regionality clearly makes a difference because just 3 hours north of here, and yes, ours is how we measure distance here in Canada, up in Edmonton, trees were already blooming. And do you know what the weather was like up here when we were getting pelted with snow? It wasn't snowing as hard. It still snowed a little, but it was mostly rain, which means those trees knew they were going to be okay. It got cold, but not so cold that all the leaves will wilt and perish away. And Edmonton doesn't really get Chinooks, which means the trees probably hit their cold target sooner. But they probably have different cold targets up there because it gets cold and it just stays cold. To quote Amarion, it's an icebox up there. Got it. So the trees need the temperature to be at a certain level, the days to be sunnier, and a certain amount of preceding days to have been cold before they can leaf on. Because since the leaves came in, it has basically been summer. Days have been over 20 degrees regularly because we don't really get spring here in Canada. It's winter, it's summer, 2 weeks of autumn, and that's it. It's a climate that somehow produces the handsomest yet most sarcastic Ryans in the world. The trees know things, just like M. Night Shyamalan predicted.
Talking to a plastic plant.
This might sound like a conspiracy theory or a theory, if you will, but the fact that trees don't get duped by Chinooks means to a certain extent, they know what they are. Trees on the coast are blooming earlier, which means they're ignoring their own mechanics of counting cold days and reacting to the other factors to leaf on earlier. Trees are making decisions! Not like big ones, but decisions! There's this condition called crown shyness, which exists in dense forests, where instead of just growing as big as they can, most trees don't. They leave little gaps in between them where one canopy ends and another one begins. And that is remarkable teamwork. It's not even the same species of trees doing this. They'll just intermingle and they'll just be like, yep, no, we're not going to touch each other. That way bugs and stuff can't crawl across us. Or koalas. Because do you think a koala knows where one tree ends and another one ends? No. Koalas don't even know eucalyptus leaves or eucalyptus leaves if you put them on a plate. Not smart animals. If you're in a forest with crown shyness happening and a koala tries to go across two trees, it is falling straight to the ground. Which is why you wear pointy hats in Australia. But also, scientists don't actually know the reason behind it, but I think it's a koala thing. Standing by the koala thing. So what does this all mean? Trees are more in tune with nature because they themselves are nature. Leaves are a better indicator of spring than a groundhog. Sap is basically tree blood that we reduce down to put on our pancakes and or enjoy as a sweet Quebecois treat. Or maybe everything is wrong and you just have a bad ice wine harvest that year, which means the events of my favorite Christmas movie, An Ice Wine Christmas, were right? How did this made-for-TV movie about a town gathering to do field labor for free be so wise in the way of plants? Because the entire premise of this film starring Rosalind Sanchez is that science can't predict winter, but the vines can. And do you know what? They do! Just in time for Christmas! Even Nerd Boy she was falling for had to concede that we don't actually know anything and that science kills the magic of Christmas that's within us all. After drinking a bottle of this Christmas magic wine, because the wine is the conduit for Christmas magic, and that's how it gets within us all. And also, it takes place in Canada. And you know what else takes place in Canada? This channel. So you should like and subscribe to this channel so you can learn more about like trees and Power Rangers and mushrooms and fashion. Trees and fashion. It's like, come on. It's the ultimate combination. So hit those buttons and smash that bell. Bye now.